Right, so it's time for Outside, the part of the show where I speak to a former MP, a celebrity, or someone who's had an extremely interesting career to find out what makes them tick and what comes next after they leave the role. Now, a career in politics and being under the media spotlight can be pretty tricky at the best of times, but what's it like when you have your significant other also coming along for that ride? There's something that Neil and Christine Hamilton definitely share, and they know all about that, having been through the highs and lows of a parliamentary career together, with Neil serving as a Conservative MP for Tatton, with Christine as his secretary. Now, after a controversial exit from Westminster, the pair made a political comeback with UKIP, and Neil is now the leader of the party, which was founded to secure the UK's exit from the European Union. I'm very pleased to say the pair join me in the studio now. Hello and welcome. Hey,
good to be here.
Thank you so much. You know, Christine, the first time I met you, and this is many, many years ago,
yes.
I was a runner at a production company. I was Christine Hamilton's runner, and I came to your house in Battersea. I'm sorry, where you used to live. Obviously, you don't live there now. And I came to that house, and it was a flat, I think you had, and I brought some, I don't know whether it was washing or something else. I had all the big jobs then, and I met
you. You brought the washing for me to do?
I don't know, because I was working for a production company, and they'd sent me to do a little errand, and I ended up, and I met you both.
That must have been Princess Productions.
That was, yes.
And for any viewers who don't know, a runner is at the bottom of the heap.
I know.
You're almost unpaid.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, how great. That was in 2000?
My God, no.
1990, even, yeah, it was.
God, it was a long, long time ago.
2000.
Yeah, so
well, there we go.
And then the next time I met you, I had this little fitness hoop on QVC, and I was selling it with my DVD, and I got a picture of you there as well.
That's right, good old QVC.
So what's been going on with you two? First of all, because we see you a lot, how did you guys meet?
Oh dear, that's going back.
That is.
Almost before the birth of recorded history, that was, about 1969, I think.
1969,
when we were both students. We were at a student political conference. Christine was then at York University. I was at Aberystwyth, of all places.
Aberystwyth, I wanted to go there. What was
really?
it like?
Yeah. Oh, well, it was, how should we say, remote.
Yeah,
it was 5.5 hours on the train from London, which seemed...
Still is.
A hell of a long way when I was 19. But it was a lovely location, of course, and gave me free rein to develop my political beliefs and rub people up the wrong way, which I spent most of my life doing in one way or another.
It was love at first sight.
Really?
We were at a student conference. Yeah. Well, it was, let's be honest, at that age, it's lust.
It is a bit, isn't it?
And here we are. That was, what, how many?
Well, that's 53 years
53
ago.
Years ago.
53 years ago.
I nearly escaped once.
Well, I dumped him for a few years, but then I saw the error of my ways and we got back together.
7 years later, I climbed up the north face of the Eiger of Christine's affections and got to the summit, where I've been ever since.
Oh, that's lovely. And have you got children between the two?
No, do you know, until you mentioned it, I'd completely forgotten. It was Mother's Day, because neither of us have our mother, I'm going to cry, have our mothers anymore. I'm not really. And we don't have children, so Mother's Day just doesn't feature in our... It clearly doesn't feature in yours either, according to your
Christine,
daughter.
don't worry, you haven't missed much. Yeah, it's obviously... Yeah.
So she's self-identifying as Kevin now.
Literally, the day she turned 13, she just went... and I said, "You're all right." She goes, I don't know what's happened to her. But anyway, so you guys, you've been together for pretty much like over 50 years.
Don't remind me.
50 years, and you've done a lot of things. And I know, obviously, Neil, you're still a politician.
Yeah.
But you've had a few things going on there. Tell us a bit about
ups and downs.
Ups and downs. Tell us a bit about.
Well, I was an MP in the 80s and 90s, Westminster. I was a minister in Margaret Thatcher's government and John Major. And for the last 5 years, I was a member of the Welsh Parliament in Cardiff, because I was born in Wales and grew up there. Left it in 1974, never thinking that I would ever go back to live and work there, but the opportunity arose to get elected for UKIP in the Assembly, as it was then called, elections in 2016. So that was a trip down memory lane for me, and I provided, I think, what you might call the grit in the oyster there, because it was stiflingly conventional, and there's no real debate. I'm afraid that the Conservatives are no real opposition to the permanent Labour government that
None at all, are they?
Wales endures. So I was able to say things that, I should say, unfashionable, a bit like what you hear on GBNews.
Yes.
I remember when somebody heard that Neil was going to the Welsh Parliament, they said, "Oh, I hope he livens thing up. It would make a glass eye go to sleep." And I've never heard a better description of the Welsh.
Well, I tried to introduce some common sense on issues such as hate speech and the woke issues and cancel culture and all that kind of thing, as well as on issues like mass immigration and other big issues, climate change, where again I took a contrarian view on that. Now the chickens are coming home to roost big time, aren't they? So I've tried over the years to be consistent in my views and to express myself as loudly as possible. And so I did that in Cardiff to the almost universal horror of everybody else who was a member.
And I know that there was obviously the Cash for Questions, that affair, but obviously you denied being part of any of that.
Yes, that was completely untrue, but of course I ended up in the headlights in a major way in the 1997 election when Christine, the great battle axe, came to my attention, not to my attention, to the public's attention, defending me. From that televisual event, a new career in broadcasting was born.
No, it's fabulous. But speaking of broadcasting, Christine, you've been in broadcasting for a bit yourself, because I remember seeing you in the Jungle. And that was literally one of the most controversial ones. What happened there? What was
it was extraordinary because Neil lost his seat in '97, and of course I was working for him, so I lost my seat. And suddenly there we were, completely unemployed in the most unpropitious of circumstances. And frankly, what the hell are we going to do now? And then media things started to come in, and I got asked to do The Jungle. And I said, it was the first one, it was 2002.
It was fabulous.
And nobody really knew, even ITV didn't quite know how it was going to pan out. And they told me about it, and rice and beans and snakes and all that. And I just thought, no, that's real life. Why do I need that? So I said no. And then they obviously hadn't got their sort of middle-aged mother hen. And so they came back to me and asked me a few months later, and I said, well, why not? I loved it. It was one of the best experiences of my life.
But it was a controversial one, though, wasn't it? Because there was that big argument. Wasn't there a big argument in there? Who was it with? So who were you?
Arguments with everybody. I wasn't the worst one for arguing. Rona Cameron argued with everybody. Nigel Benn argued. Tara argued. But that's what they want. They deliberately
Nigel Benn, wasn't it?
choose people.
There was something going on there. I can't remember.
He and Rona set off before we'd even left the hotel, because Nigel Benn is a born-again Christian and Rona is not. And off they went. And, of course, Nigel Benn doesn't approve of lesbians, which Rona is, proudly. So that was another bone of contention. But it was great fun. I mean, I loved it.
It was a very fiery episode, I do.
But it was a long time ago.
Yes. So Neil, you're in UKIP now.
Yeah.
A lot of people might say, what's the point of UKIP now? We've Brexited. Do they have a purpose? What would you see as their purpose?
Well, Brexit is, of course, still unfinished business to a great extent. We saw Simon Coveney on the TV earlier on in your programme, Irish Foreign Minister, and Northern Ireland is effectively still in the EU. So we've got to sort that out, and fishing and various other things as well. But yes, I accept that most people think that UKIP's USP was to get us out of the EU, and as far as most people are concerned, to all intents and purposes, we've done that. But, UKIP stands for a lot of other things too. We've got a full range of policies in our manifesto. For example, we've got 3 crises going on at the minute. There's a cost of living crisis, largely because of the huge costs imposed upon us by the government's reaction to COVID, over-regulation, closing down the economy, etc. UKIP opposed all that. There's the energy crisis, handing over the power for Europe to Mr. Putin or to Xi Jinping in China, and the massive green scams. Everybody's paying 25% more on their electricity bills because we're giving subsidies to millionaire developers to build wind farms, for example. And there are other crises as well where we've led the way in talking common sense. So this is what we're still doing as well, like on mass immigration, for example. Every country needs to have some immigration. We can't keep on adding 1/3 people to the UK's population every single year. 6 million people more in this country today than there were 20 years ago. Where are they going to live? How are they going to get to school?
How are we going to manage
and so on and so forth.
Of course, we're managing the crisis with you.
Controlled and managed immigration.
Well. Very, very important.
And we're the only party talking in these terms.
What about Joe Biden? You saw his speech yesterday. What was your view? Do you think he was right to say what he said? Though, I mean, come on, he shot from the hip. He said,
do you know? Every time I see Biden on the telly and I see him approach a lectern, or I just think, honestly, I think, is he going to make it? Is he going to make it to that lectern? He's just a doddery old fool, isn't she? And what really annoys me about Biden is that the Democrats, they knew perfectly well that that's what he was, and anybody to beat Trump. And
well, the trouble with Joe Biden is the 2 seconds after he's woken up, it's really bedtime again, isn't it? And he should really never be allowed out of bed, because he's fine as long as he keeps to the script that somebody else has written to him. The problems are when he opens his mouth and speaks spontaneously. Yeah. And we've seen this so many times, as your guest from Henry Jackson Society enumerated just a few minutes ago. He is a walking disaster area in a way. We know that you can't take seriously anything he says unless it is an official script, and he's just a doddery old fool. But Putin, of course, will use
that clip. He'll use that, won't he?
Misspeaking, as the Americans call it, for propaganda value. And so Biden is actually undermining Western strategy by his well-meaning but ill-informed and badly expressed meanderings from his mind. And so he's a nightmare.
Myself. That's exactly right.
And people used to complain about Donald Trump and his ability to shoot from the lip. But at least with Donald Trump,
he was still there, wasn't he?
He exuded strength, whereas Biden exudes weakness. Yeah. And that's an open invitation to autocrats like Putin to take advantage of the West. So he's a catastrophe for us all.
He's a catastrophe for us all. Christine, what are you up to then these days? I know you see you a lot on GBNews.
What am I up to? Well, I can't tell you. I'm 72 now, and at long last, I have retired. And because I did my stint in Parliament, and then we were massively busy doing reality television, pantomime. We took a show to the Edinburgh Festival, which is where we first met Mark Dolan, your colleague, and we've done all sorts of things like that. We've done the Rocky Horror Show and had huge fun doing all that. Then he hits upon this brilliant idea of going back into politics. When he suggested the Welsh Parliament, over my dead body, I said, don't you dare. But of course he did. So for 5 years, when I was knocking 70, I was back doing what I started doing when I was 21. I just left uni, working for an elected representative. But now, finally, he has, last May, lost his seat. And I'm able to I am retired. It is simply wonderful. I can read books for the first time in my adult life. It's quite blissful.
What are you reading now?
I have, what I'm actually reading now is Christopher Sykes' autobiography of Nancy Astor. But what I've just finished...
was the first woman MP to take her seat in Parliament.
I'm sure GBNews viewers know that.
You never know, do you?
No,
they have
youngsters.
Audiences all around the world for this.
I'm so sorry, you're quite right. And I've also read Fionn Haig's book about the women in Lloyd George's life, which she writes beautifully, The Pain and the Privilege, which was fascinating. So I'm loving it.
Wow, sounds fabulous.
So I am retired.
You're retired,
yes.
You're still working.
He's not.
So good. Do you have a pearl of wisdom you could pass on to anybody because you two have been together for so long, what is your secret of being together in this way? Because
I think it's, so long as I do exactly as I'm told, we get on very well.
If only. I'll tell you what it is, two things. One is, remember your marriage vows. Well, first of all, think about them before you take them. Are you really going to live up to that? And then live up to it. And then if you always put the other one first, and they do the same, you sometimes end up with a bit of indecision. But basically, put them first and you'll be fine.
Well,
it's luck, it's luck.
No, you're so lovely.
And lots of laughter. You need lots of laughter.
That was lovely. Nobody wants me. It's so lovely to see you, Christine and Neil Hamilton. Aren't they fabulous? That, of course, was Outside. Thank you so much for staying with us.